In this video, we'll give you 6 tight ends we like in 2024 fantasy redraft leagues. I'm Jim Coventry along with Anthony Servino of RotoWire.
Jim, the first tight end I like going into redraft season, Kyle Pitts, Atlanta Falcons. And Kyle Pitts, if we scale back to his rookie season, he came out of college with a ton of hype, absolutely smashed workout metrics. And in that rookie year, despite having Marcus Mariota under center, he went over 1,000 yards receiving and 15.1 yards per reception. He finished as a tight end 11 in fantasy points per game. Should have been higher considering the yards and the receptions, but he only had 1 touchdown. Since then, it's kind of been a downfall for Kyle Pitts. We had Arthur Smith. We had horrendous quarterback play, which is a lot to say when you had Marcus Mariota in year 1. But now it all changes for Kyle Pitts with Zach Robinson coming in and Kirk Cousins. And we know from recent history especially, Kirk Cousins likes to hyper target a tight end. When TJ Hawkinson came to Minnesota and was paired with Cousins, TJ Hawkinson was one of the top fantasy football tight ends. And I think he can have the same impact on Kyle Pitts' career. Kyle Pitts, if we are paying attention to recent rumors coming out of the Atlanta Falcons camp, is that Kyle Pitts is not only going to play in the slot, they're going to line up on the outside. They're going to use his skill set and his size to create mismatches that Kyle Pitts will win. So at his current price point, and Kyle Pitts right now is going as a tight end 7 off the board, I believe he's a value because he could finish as a top 4 to 5 tight end in 2024.
First tight end that I like in 2024 redraft leagues, Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, look, Andrews did get hurt last year, and he started the season hurt. He missed week 1 and weeks 2 and 3. He wasn't fully himself. You could tell his numbers were a little off. Production wasn't quite what we wanted. But that said, Andrews was still on pace for over 900 yards last season. And there are very few tight ends that put up 1,000-yard seasons, but Andrews is one of those receivers at tight end in the last 5 years who has actually done that. All that said, Andrews went down in week 11 after that hip drop tackle against the Bengals, ended his regular season. Now, when Andrews comes back, he's coming back to an offense that was better than the one he left with the injury. Because from week 12 on, we saw Lamar Jackson improving in Todd Monken's offense as a passer. Andrews will step into that improved situation with another training camp together. Andrews is most likely the first option and downfield passing. Also, he will be an alpha receiver. We know Zay Flowers is there, but this is a receiver, Mark Andrews at tight end, that Lamar Jackson has always counted on. Now, Andrews, the only time he hasn't hit 847 yards in a full season was in 2020. And even that year, 701 yards and 7 touchdowns, you'll still take that at tight end. And as I said earlier, Andrews is only one of 5 tight ends of 1,000 yards in the last 5 years. I have him as my tight end too. In many drafts, you can get Andrews as well as a tight end 5.
Jim, my next tight end that I like going into redraft fantasy football season, Hunter Henry, New England Patriots, and right now, big-time value, tight end 20 off the board. And I get that Hunter Henry, he doesn't put up elite numbers. But if we go back to the past, before he came over to New England, he had a 3-year span from 2017 to 2020 where he was a tight end 10 or better in fantasy points per game. So we know he has it in him when an offense and a quarterback is competent, which has not been the case since joining the New England Patriots. But things could turn around this year. Whether it's Jacoby Brissett, who we expect to start the season, or Drake May, we believe that they are both going to be upgrades over guys like Mac Jones, who was a primary starter in New England for the past 2 seasons. Hunter Henry has also been a safety blanket for young quarterbacks going back to Justin Herbert, Mac Jones, and now we expect him to be a safety blanket for not only Drake May, but Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett, no matter how many games he plays, he's a solid bridge quarterback. That's what his career is going to be defined by. And even bridge quarterbacks, they like to lean on a tight end. So for somebody like Hunter Henry, there is a path where he could potentially be the number 2 targeted player in this offense. This wide receiver room isn't great. We do expect one to pop, but Hunter Henry, again, anytime I can make a case for a tight end to be number 1 or number 2 on a team in targets, I'm willing to take that dart throw. And again, tight end 20 off the board. Why not Hunter Henry?
If you enjoy videos like this, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to the RotoWire Fantasy Football channel on YouTube. Also, check out all of our fantasy football content and rankings by getting a free 2-day trial with no credit card needed. Just go to rotowire.com/Jim to see all of our content. The next tight end I like in 24 redraft leagues, Pat Freiermuth of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Freiermuth in 2022 posted 732 yards, very strong season. 2023, not so good. Huge disappointment. Targets, major issue. 6 targets per game in 2022, down to 4 targets per game last year. Average depth of target, 7.5 in 2022. Almost a full yard lower in 2023, 6.6. Now, Arthur Smith comes in to coach the offense. Some people are worried. They're like, well, Kyle Pitts did not do very well. Don't forget, Jonnu Smith, the tight end, second tight end in Atlanta, had a career year, 50 catches, 582 yards, and 3 touchdowns on 70 targets last year. Kyle Pitts was used as a deep threat. That is not what Freiermuth's going to see. Freiermuth will see the similar work to Jonnu Smith, plus some of the work that Pitts saw as well. Do not be surprised if Freiermuth is second in targets on this team. Remember, they may have drafted Roman Wilson. They may have Calvin Austin. But Arthur Smith runs up to 80% heavy personnel. There are going to be 1 receiver sets. There are not going to be many receivers with in the slot because there won't be slot receivers in these heavy sets. Freiermuth is going to be on the field, and Darnell Washington should be a primary blocker. So as the number 2 option in this offense, Pat Freiermuth is a steal in drafts.
Jim, the last tight end that I like going into redraft fantasy football season, Mike Gesicki of the Cincinnati Bengals. And right now, Gesicki is free. Tight end 30 off the board. And I think people are forgetting that Mike Gesicki was a quality tight end, had a very promising start to his career with the Miami Dolphins. In 2020 and 2019, he was a tight end 8 or better in fantasy points per game. So what happened? Once Mike McDaniel came over to Miami, his system did not fit the Gesicki skill set. Gesicki, very good pass catcher, can line him up on the outside and in the slot, but he cannot block. And we know that the Mike McDaniel skill set requires a tight end that can do everything like George Kittle. Gesicki also did not work out with New England for obvious reasons. So now that he's in Cincinnati, I think there's a significant role potentially coming. Tyler Boyd is no longer there. He was their primary slot receiver. Now he goes over to Tennessee. And I know that people are talking up Jermaine Burton, the rookie receiver, but the recent training camp report from beat writer Paul Denner suggests that Mike Gesicki can be used in that big slot role, which suggests, hey, he could be a significant part of this offense in 2024. And we know that Joe Burrow, he likes targeting the tight ends, especially in areas of the field that correlate to fantasy points. Guys like Tanner Hudson, as recent as last year, was even fantasy relevant. So if you want a dart throw tight end with a path to targets, Mike Gesicki might be the best one outside the top 25.
The last tight end I like in 2024 redraft leagues, Luke Musgrave of the Green Bay Packers. Now, Musgrave was hurt last year. Injury in week 12, missed 6 games. But before that injury, he was playing 45 to 60 snaps per game. It was a solid role that he had. And Musgrave had at least 49 yards in 4 of 9 games. He was also 59th percentile in yards after the catch. Musgrave was also lined up as an X receiver while the team moved their wide receivers on the other side of the field and bunched them. And Musgrave was able to win in those situations. So he is a very good route runner and pass catcher and reliable for the offense. Now, with the injuries, we know that Musgrave came back in week 18 in 2 playoff games, and he only played an average of 14 snaps in those 3 games. It was very clear to me that he was not yet healed from his injury. So Tucker Kraft played a very heavy role. But realistically, Kraft was drafted to be the blocker. Musgrave was drafted to be the receiver. There is no reason that should change this year. If Musgrave, as expected, is the clear lead tight end, he may have volatility week to week, but he easily could finish around the top 10 at the tight end position.